In today's video, we are going to be speaking about No Rules Rules by Reed Hastings and Erin Meyer. Let's get started. Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Praveen Ramesh, and on this channel I speak about non-fiction books and I also speak about lessons that I am personally learning by reading these books. I find it immensely useful. I hope you do too. So as I said at the start, today we are going to be speaking about this amazing book called No Rules Rules. So, this is the second book I think I've read this year on all things about culture, company culture and how companies are built. The first one is Delivering Happiness, the story of how Zappos culture was built, and this is about Netflix company culture, right? Without further ado, we are going to be speaking about 7 pillars of Netflix's culture that make them a great place to work for. So the first one is called talent density. So the company culture starts right at the point where they start to hire people, right? So talent density is the phenomenon, or what Netflix defines it as. They recruit people who are very talented and pay them a above average market salary, right? Because money should be the last thing that should be on your mind when you're doing meaningful and delivering great work. So they optimize a lot for talent density. Because they strongly believe that you have a team of 4 with one mediocre performer. That one mediocre performer is going to bring down the morale of the whole team. So they rather have 3 highly talented people who will push each other to do meaningful work, to put out great work that one they will be proud of, and 2 the work that will push the company forward, right? So they are strong believers of talent density. Second one, the second pillar of Netflix's culture is Candour, right? Open Candour as they call it, is where you are encouraged to speak up or speak up against or share opinions very aggressively. In fact, their CEO goes on to say harsh opinions or things that you personally don't agree with as a manager or as a senior management might when someone expresses it might really feel painful or aggressive in the short term. But in the long term, it's for the betterment of the company. So when someone is coming and telling you that they don't agree with the management decision, you might feel, your ego might hurt in the short term, but you have to realize that in the long term, they mean well for the company. So at Netflix, what's really surprised me was all the leaders and managers are encouraged to take feedback from their reportees or people reporting to them with a lot of gratitude and prove to their reportees that they are acting on them. So that way, none of the employees will feel bad or feel kind of intimidated to give feedback to their manager, right? So that was very fascinating to me, because they've instructed the leaders to say, hey, you should be taking these feedback with gratitude. Now imagine how many companies would do that, right? Especially where in a world where things run by hierarchy, where by default you think that you shouldn't be speaking against people in power, even though you might not agree with a lot of things that they say. So that is the second pillar. Moving on to the third pillar, unlimited vacation, right? So this is something that I really love, because who doesn't want unlimited vacation, right? But here is how Netflix goes about implementing it. So they say any culture or policy is not going to be implemented unless the leaders lead by example, or unless the leaders show how it is done. So again, Netflix tells their managers, senior management and directors or whoever have people reporting to them to lead by example by taking a lot of vacation, because more often than not these unlimited vacation policies and all those things end up just being on the piece of paper or the slide deck that speaks about culture deck, but the employees wouldn't take it because their manager isn't taking it, and their manager wouldn't take it because his or her manager isn't taking it, and stuff like that. So from the CEO to the last manager in the line, everyone takes at least a month or 2 off or certain weeks off to encourage their reportees to take a lot of vacation. So, until now, what really surprised me in the book was how a lot of these culture are top down, right? Because the mistake that most companies tend to do, or at least widely have discovered across reading in the web, is these culture end up being in the deck, right? Only when it comes from top down do people really, people at the lower end of the hierarchy start implementing or living the culture, as Reed goes on to say. The fourth one is no bureaucracy, right? So for example, there is absolutely no bureaucracy. I know a lot of companies do say this, but Netflix has taken it to the next level where they say, hey, you need not take permission from your manager to take an unlimited vacation. Rather, you just need to inform your manager and ensure that your work doesn't get interrupted while you're away. There is someone always taking care of the work. Similarly, none of the Netflix employees need approvals, right? So they just need to provide all the right context to their manager to take decisions. So, and they also have this culture of speaking about failures more proudly, or speaking about failures so that others can learn from it. This ensures that employees don't disagree with their managers, and it also gives them a great responsibility for all the employees to ensure that they stand right by the company. The fifth one is called the keeper test. Keeper test is very, very simple. So I think once in a while, or once with a with a fixed set of intervals, managers are always asked, hey, if person X in your team quits, will you fight with them to retain them, right? So managers have to answer this for every employee that reports to them. And if the answer is no, they would say, why don't you let them go? Because they need to keep up with the talent density. That is the point number one that we discussed, right? So they always have this keeper test once in a while where they ask the managers about, hey, do you wanna, if this person comes down and puts his or her paper tomorrow, will you fight to retain them, right? So you constantly keep evolving and you constantly keep asking this question once in a while to ensure that you always maintain that talent density. Sixth pillar is say stuff that matters. A lot of times, when you say that you have no bureaucracy, you have an open candor and things like that, you will have people telling you all sorts of things, right? So what Netflix rather tells you is, hey, say things that really matters. Don't say anything that you wouldn't say in front of that person's face, right? So if you're giving me a feedback, you should, however harsh or however unpleasant it might be, if you wouldn't give it to me in front of my face, you rather not give me that feedback. So what this has helped them do is reduce the management backstabbing and ensure that less of very office politics and actual work gets done. Just by ensuring that everyone gives open feedback and they give feedback that matters, and managers and leaders proving that their feedback is taken with gratitude and is acted upon, they have ensured that there is no management backstabbing, or there is no let's say things that are spoken at the back, there are no office politics that are circulating around and stuff like that, because all this stems around because you agree with the manager or disagree with the manager and you're not able to express it. So they've identified the root cause of why office politics happen and try and eliminated that. The seventh one is leading with context, right? So beautifully the book speaks about, hey, if you want to eliminate mistakes, you lead with control, where you tell your reportees exactly what needs to be done. Hey, do this, do that. Today you're going to be working on this. Today you're just going to be writing this blog. Today you're just going to be deploying this code and all sorts of things. Whereas Netflix actively encourages managers to lead with context because they are all in on innovation. They are okay with people making mistakes with their innovation. They are okay with people trying out these small experiments. As long as they provided context, the manager just needs to provide the context, and if the experiment becomes a success, great. If it doesn't become a success, you just have to ensure you educate the whole company on why something wasn't a success, right? How awesome that would be to have that psychological safety to say, hey, you know what, I'm trying this knowing that if I fail, my job is not on the line. So they always say to have a good innovation, they encourage everyone to lead with context and not with control. So these are the 7 things, and Netflix firmly believes that, hey, we're not one family, because you see a lot of these companies telling each other that we are one family, we are here to have fun and stuff like that, but rather Netflix thinks of itself as a sports team where players come in, they perform at their best during the peak, and then they move on to find good opportunities. And how do they do that? By having a good talent density. That reminds me, there is this popular saying in Netflix where they say average pay will be rewarded with heavy severance package, right? Because they don't want average work to be put out, they only want tier 1 work to be put out, right? So average work is always rewarded with heavy severance pay. That wraps up my review, or let's say summary of No Rules by Reed Hastings and Erin Meyer. I enjoyed reading these books. I highly recommend you pick this up and start reading it. Until I see you in the next video, this is Praveen Ramesh signing off.